His hand does not let go. Even in sleep, counting his breaths comes easier than counting my own tonight, and counting is the only thing that has ever kept me steady. 12, 13, 14. Rain that never made it outside hangs in the air of this room, antiseptic underneath it, and something beneath both I don't have a word for yet. A whole life spent being handed to people who didn't want the weight of me led here, to the one man who picked me up and never once put me back down. If you have ever had someone decide who you were before they met you, you already know what this story is going to cost her to prove them wrong. Stay a while. This one is for the ones who were counted out. The numbers do not stop just because my head hurts. 11 minutes now, staring at the same column of figures, the pain behind my left eye arriving in waves timed almost exactly to my pulse. 11 minutes, because counting is what I do when the world gets too loud to hold still in. 412 invoices sit open on the screen. One discrepancy hides somewhere in the shipping manifests, small enough that 3 accountants missed it, large enough that it will matter eventually. 40 minutes have passed since I found it. Nothing has stopped since. No food since noon. Almost 11 at night now. The study holds the particular quiet of old houses, wood settling, pipes ticking somewhere behind the walls, snow pressing itself flat against the windows outside. St. Paul in February does not so much fall as accumulate, silent and patient, the way debt does. Both kinds are familiar to me. My hands stay steady on the keyboard. That much can be controlled. The numbers cannot. They've started to swim slightly at the edges, blurring where they should hold still, and my palm presses flat against my sternum like that will do anything at all to slow whichever organ is working too hard tonight. Still, the work continues. Stopping has never been affordable. Not at 17, standing in a hospital hallway holding 2 newborns nobody else in the building wanted to look at directly. Not when my father found the bottom of a bottle and stayed there. Not in any of the interviews where a hiring manager's eyes caught on my file before they caught on my face, something in their posture softening into the specific, careful kindness that always meant no. Dominic Carlo never did that. 9 minutes was all he needed to read my analysis of his shipping routes, flat, silent, and then 4 words came that no employer had ever said to me before. You see what others miss. No question about my diagnosis. Only what I thought about the docs. Accuracy is the currency I owe him. It's the only one that's ever been mine to give. The migraine sharpens. A white wire, pulled tight behind my eye. Typing continues anyway, because 2 5-year-olds are asleep 4 miles from here in an apartment still being paid off, and the woman who watches them on nights like this does not work for free, and neither, apparently, does exhaustion. It collects on its own schedule. It does not ask permission. The door to the study opens without a knock. Only one person in this house does that. You are still here. Dominic's voice does not rise. It never does. It carries anyway, low, worn smooth like a stone turned over too many times to have any edges left. Still in his shirt sleeves, sable hair pushed back from a night that has clearly cost him something, and there is a tension in his shoulders that says the meeting downstairs did not go the way meetings in this house are supposed to go. I found the discrepancy comes out of me because it's true and because it's easier to say than the truth underneath it. I did not ask about the discrepancy. My eyes stay on the screen. It matters. Someone on the Hollis account has been padding freight numbers for 6 months. Small enough not to trip anything. Large enough that eventually it becomes a pattern. Silence for a moment. Not empty. Considering. Emma. That's the part one hate. How he says my name. Not because it's unkind. Because it's the opposite. Nobody says it like that, like it's a full sentence on its own, like it doesn't need anything added to be worth saying. I am fine, slips out, and my hands, without permission, straighten a stack of papers that were already straight. He sees it. Of course he sees it. 3 months have taught him the specific shape of my lying, the same 3 months that taught me the shape of his silences, the ones that mean grief, and the ones that mean calculation, and the ones, rarer, that mean something closer to peace. Go home, he says. I have 4 more accounts. They will still be discrepancies tomorrow. The urge rises to tell him that tomorrow is not free either, that every hour not spent proving myself is an hour someone might decide I was never worth the risk in the first place. Job interviews that ended before they started want to be spoken about. What it costs to be looked at and seen as capable wants to be spoken about, and how much more it costs to stop. None of it gets said. The room tilts instead. Gently, at first like a held note going slightly flat. The wire behind my eye pulls tighter, and the lamp on the desk blooms too bright, too wide, and the last coherent thought that surfaces is that the file never got saved. The fall itself leaves no memory. What remains is the floor, cold, and then not cold, and then arms that should not have been able to move that fast, and a voice, close now, closer than it has ever been, saying my name the way you say something you are afraid of losing. Emma. Not a question. Not procedure. Something with a crack running straight through the center of it. The last thing to register, before the dark closes all the way over, is that his hands do not hesitate. Not for a single second. Like he had been waiting his whole life for something worth catching. Warmth that does not belong to me is the first thing to arrive. A hand, large, still, wrapped around mine like it has been there the whole time I was gone, registers before anything else does. My fingers are curled into it, gripping, the way you grip a railing on stairs you cannot see the bottom of. This happens before enough of me is awake to ask permission. My body decided to hold on before my mind caught up. Then the room arrives. Not my room. Dark wood, high windows, snow-pressed pale against the glass, and a chair pulled close enough to the bed that whoever sat in it did not want distance between us. Who it is comes clear before my head even turns. My hand pulls back so fast it nearly knocks the water glass off the nightstand. You're awake. Dominic does not move from the chair. His voice carries the particular flatness of a man who has been awake far longer than his body wanted him to be. How long? Not a question. There isn't enough energy left to make it sound like one. 6 hours. 6 hours. The math runs itself before anything else can happen. Rosa would have picked the twins up by 7, fed them by 8, had them in bed by 9 if the schedule held, and it's well past that now, which means 4 unanswered texts are sitting on a phone somewhere in this house, and something in my chest pulls tight enough to hurt. I need my phone. It's charging. Downstairs. He says this the way he says everything, without apology, without softness, and somehow that's worse than gentle would have been because gentle could have been pushed against. Flat leaves nothing to push. Sitting up happens too fast. The room tips, resettles. My hands find the blanket and grip it instead of him this time, which feels like a small, private victory nobody else will ever know was won. I have work in the study. No, you don't, Dominic. You collapsed on my floor, Emma. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, and the shadows under his own eyes show themselves for the first time, dark enough to match mine. I am not sending you back to a spreadsheet. An argument wants to be made. It comes out smaller than intended. I have to go home. Why? Because I have 2 5-year-olds who think I hung the moon and a babysitter I'm already late paying, and none of that stops because I fainted in your study. The words land sharper than planned, sharp enough to surprise us both. 3 months of careful, measured professionalism have gone into every sentence around him, checked twice before leaving my mouth. This one skips the checking entirely. He does not flinch. He watches the way he watches ledgers, like he's looking for the number that doesn't add up.
Twins, he says.
You've never mentioned twins. It wasn't relevant to shipping manifests. It's relevant now. Quiet. When he says it, and something in the quiet folds my stomach in on itself, because that tone is recognizable. It's the one people use right before deciding something about you that was never agreed to. Don't comes out. Don't what? Whatever this is. Don't fix it. I didn't ask you to fix anything. My hands have found each other in my lap, white-knuckled, bracing for something that still doesn't have a name. No answer comes right away. He walks to the window instead, and for a moment the only sound in the room is the low tick of the radiator and my own pulse, loud in my ears, counting itself the way I count everything when the world needs to hold still. Your mother, he says, back still to me. The hospital records. Someone looked into it after you collapsed. Whether this was exhaustion or something worse needed answering. The floor tilts again, and this time it has nothing to do with the migraine. You looked into my mother's death. I looked into you. He turns. There's a balance still owed. Delivery complications 4 years ago. It's been sitting with a collection agency since before the twins could walk. That number lives by heart. The exact shape of a scar is known this way, the tongue finding a broken tooth without meaning to. $11,640. 3 years of paying it down $20 at a time, in months where $20 meant something went without.
It's handled, Dominic says.
As of an hour ago. The room goes very still. Not the stillness of a migraine settling. A different kind, the kind where floor and something further down become impossible to tell apart, even for a second.
What does handled mean?
It means it's paid.
Gone.
You won't hear from them again. Standing happens without a decision behind it. The blanket falls away, bare feet hit cold floor, and something in my chest climbs fast, too fast, past anything with words attached yet. You had no right. I had the ability. That's different. It is not the same thing, Dominic, and you know it isn't. My voice cracks on his name, and hating that it cracks doesn't stop it. 3 months of careful professionalism just came apart over $11,000 bled for $120 at a time, for years running. That debt was mine. I was paying it. Slowly, badly, but it was mine to carry, and you took it without asking, the same way everyone in my whole life has decided things about me without asking, and I don't. The sentence stops itself. My hands are shaking. Pressing flat against my own sternum is the only answer they have, like force alone could hold my own ribs together. I don't want to be someone's project. Comes out quieter now, the truest sentence spoken all night. Dominic doesn't apologize. Watching him not do it is its own small education. The refusal sits plainly on his face. No performance in it at all.
You're not a project, he says.
You're the only person in this house who's told me the truth without being asked twice.
I didn't clear that debt to own you, Emma.
I cleared it because no one should be 4 years into paying for the day they lost their mother. Some part of me wants to keep being angry. It would be easier. Anger has edges that are easy to hold on to. The edge of the bed gets sat on instead, legs deciding the conversation is over before the rest of me catches up, and the silence that follows is not empty. It is the loudest thing in the room. If you have ever had to fight for the right to be helped, the next part is already familiar. There is a difference between being rescued and being recognized. Which one this is hasn't been figured out yet. Neither have you. If you have ever had to fight for the right to be helped, you already know what comes next. There is a difference between being rescued and being recognized. She has not found out which one this is yet. Neither have you. The debt disappears 3 days before Dominic explains what he wants in exchange. Not money. He's clear about that, clearer than trust comes easily. What he wants is a seat at the table. Second in command, he says, like it's a line item, like it doesn't just rearrange the entire architecture of a life. The study has become more mine than his most nights lately, and correcting people who call it that stopped happening weeks ago. You have men who've run this territory for 20 years. I have men who've run this territory into 3 federal investigations in 20 years. His eyes don't leave the papers he's signing. You caught the Hollis discrepancy in 40 minutes. Grennan's been sitting on that account for 6 years and never saw it. What this costs is understood before he even finishes the sentence. A lifetime of reading rooms before walking into them has taught exactly how much space is allowed before someone decides too much has been taken. This room, men who've killed for less than an insult, will decide that before a single word gets said. The seat gets taken anyway. The conference room smells like cedar and old cigar smoke, the kind soaked so deep into wood paneling it doesn't need a lit cigar to announce itself anymore. 6 men sit around a table built for 8. Being the only woman in the room, the only person under 50, lands the moment the door opens, both facts settling across my shoulders like a coat that isn't mine. Grennan doesn't stand when the chair gets pulled out. Doesn't look over either, not directly, just a flick of the eyes, assessing, dismissing, filed away before a single word has been spoken. That look has been collected 100 times before from teachers, from managers, from men in interview rooms who decided who I was before I opened my mouth. She's sitting in, Dominic says, not a question, and nobody argues out loud. The argument happens in the silence instead, in the way 3 men shift their weight, in the way Grennan's jaw works like he's chewing on something he'd rather spit. The meeting starts. Numbers, routes, a shipment 3 days behind schedule that nobody seems worried enough about. The columns on the projection screen get watched the way my mother's hospital monitors once were, waiting for the one line that doesn't match the rest, the one heartbeat that skips when it shouldn't. 6 minutes find it. That's wrong. The room goes quiet in a way that has texture to it. Thick, the kind of quiet that comes right before someone decides whether to be embarrassed or angry. Excuse me? Grennan doesn't turn his head all the way. Just enough to grant attention. Not ask a real question. Line 14. The manifest says 200 crates left the Duluth warehouse. The delivery confirmation from the receiving end logs 194. Keeping my voice level has been trained into me across 100 rooms that wanted me to shrink. 6 crates are unaccounted for. That's been happening on this route for 4 months. Same driver code every time. Silence again, different this time, the kind where people are doing math in their heads and not liking the answer. Grennan's face goes the color of old brick. That's a clerical error. It's the same clerical error 4 times in a row, from the same route, in the exact same quantity range each time. That's not a clerical error. That's a pattern. No need to raise my voice for this. My hands stay steady on the table, and for once, that steadiness isn't a performance. It's just true. Dominic doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. His attention presses in from across the table, unblinking, the same as it was in the hospital room 3 days ago, except now something underneath it has changed, closer to satisfaction than surprise. Someone is skimming from Dominic's own supply chain, and I just said it out loud in a room full of men who would kill to keep that quiet. You expect us to believe, Grennan says, low, dangerous in the specific way men get when they've been caught and haven't decided yet whether to fight or fold, that some girl who's been in this house 3 months found something the rest of us missed. The word girl sits in the air like smoke that won't clear. The old reflex rises fast, the one that wants to apologize for taking up space, the one trained in since childhood, since teachers talked over my head like the room didn't include me. My hands want to fold themselves small in my lap. Flat on the table is where they stay instead. I found it, comes out, because I actually looked. Grennan's chair scrapes back an inch. Just an inch. Enough. Dominic moves before the sound finishes. His voice doesn't rise either. It doesn't have to. The room already answers to a register that isn't fully understood yet, something under the words, something old. Grennan. Just the name. Flat. Final. Sit down. Grennan sits down. She stays at this table, Dominic says, and now his eyes find mine, just once brief, landing somewhere under the ribs that wasn't expecting it. Because she's the only person in this room who's told me the truth about my own operation without me having to drag it out of her. That's worth more to me than 20 years of loyalty that apparently includes 6 missing crates a month. Nobody speaks. The radiator ticks somewhere behind the paneling, the only sound in a room that suddenly feels much larger than it did 10 minutes ago. Sitting very still, letting the moment settle into the body the way cold settles into old wood. Slow, complete, impossible to shake back out once it's in. A whole life has been spent being told, gently or otherwise, that too much room gets taken up for what I am. Tonight, in a room full of men who could have me disappeared before morning, the only person who mattered said the opposite out loud. No smile comes. Not trusting myself yet for that. But something in my chest, some part braced for 24 years, finally, quietly lets go of a breath it didn't know it was still holding. The seat at the table doesn't disappear once claimed. That's the part nobody warns you about. 9 days pass without a word from Grennan directly. He speaks around me now at meetings, addressing Dominic while his eyes stay fixed somewhere over my shoulder, like a draft in the room he's decided not to acknowledge. Worse has been catalogued before. The work continues anyway. The house has become known the way everything gets known, by pattern, by repetition, by the small consistent details other people walk past without seeing. Dominic drinks his coffee black at 2 in the morning, always at 2, never a minute either side of it, like his body runs on a clock that doesn't answer to daylight. A second ledger lives in the bottom drawer of his desk, older than the others, the leather gone soft at the corners from handling. He's never shown it. Asking never happened either. Tonight the study holds a presence it shouldn't. midnight, the reconciliation reports spread across the desk in the particular chaos that only makes sense to me, and the numbers have started doing the thing where they separate slightly from the page, floating just above it, refusing to sit still. The door opens without a knock. His footstep carries a weight already known by now, the specific unhurried certainty of it, nothing like the clipped pace of the men downstairs. It's past midnight. I'm aware of the time, Dominic. You said you'd stop at 10. The pen doesn't lift from the page. I lied. A long pause. Long enough to finally glance up, and there's something close to exasperation on his face, though it sits strangely on him, like an expression he doesn't get much practice wearing. You collapsed 3 weeks ago in this exact chair. I was standing,
Not sitting.
There's a difference. That is not the point I'm making. I know a point you're making. The pen gets set down, finally, 2 fingers pressing against the ache building behind my left eye, an old, familiar visitor, though it hasn't come this hard in weeks. I have accounts to close before the twins wake up, and I would like to close them before my head decides to remind me it's still recovering from the last time. Then close them tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is only whatever gets done tonight and whatever doesn't. The words come out sharper than intended, catching an edge that wasn't sharpened on purpose. That's how it's worked my whole life. There's no luxury of tomorrow being a real thing to count on. No answer comes right away. He crosses to the window instead, hands in his pockets, looking out at snow that's been falling since dinner, steady, unbothered, the kind that doesn't care what hour it decides to keep falling through. My mother used to say something like that. He says, finally, quiet enough that stillness is required to hear it. Before she died. She never trusted anything that hadn't already happened. Stillness settles fast. He doesn't talk about his mother. 3 months, and this is the first time. What happened to her? Later, he says, which isn't a no, and for him that might be as close to an answer as tonight allows. The silence that follows isn't uncomfortable. It has weight to it, but not the kind that presses down, more like the quiet in a house after everyone else has finally gone to sleep, when the walls themselves seem to exhale. The bottom drawer opens. The old ledger comes out, set on the desk without a word, the leather worn from years in a dark drawer, worn soft the way a hand gets soft from being held too long. What is this? Every mistake I've made running this territory for 15 years. Numbers I got wrong before I learned not to trust anyone else's math. He taps the cover once. I've never shown it to anyone. The pages turn slowly. His handwriting inside is nothing like the clipped, efficient signature on contracts, cramped, urgent, the writing of someone working faster than his hand could keep up with. Page after page of corrections, arrows, numbers crossed out and rewritten in the margins. Why show me now? Because you'd find it eventually. You find everything eventually. Something close to a smile crosses his face, saying it, the corner of his mouth doing something it doesn't usually do, something unpracticed. Better I hand it to you than let you catch me in it. Laughter comes before it can be stopped. A real one, surprised loose. The first one let out in this house since the job started. That might be the most honest thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. Too late. Another page turns, and there, tucked between two entries from what looks like 9 years ago, waits a receipt. Faded, nearly translucent with age. A bakery 3 towns over. One item. Vanilla, single slice.
No question gets asked about it.
Something says tonight isn't the night for that story either. The ledger closes instead, carefully, the way you close something that was handed to you and not thrown, and his eyes are still there when I look up. Not the assessing look from the study 3 months ago, not the flat, unreadable calculation of the man who runs this house like a war he's tired of fighting. Something quieter than that. Go to bed, Emma, he says, and this time no order lives in it. Just something close to asking. In a minute. No argument comes. He walks to the door, pauses there, hand on the frame. There's tea in the kitchen. Rosa left it before she went home. The blend you like, the one with the ginger. That detail was never known to be tracked, that some version of him catalogs things like this quietly, without saying so, the same way I've been cataloging him. Thank you. Comes out smaller than intended, worn soft at the edges like the leather of the ledger still open on the desk. He nods once and leaves, and the study holds nothing but his mistake spread open and a cup of ginger tea waiting somewhere downstairs that he remembered and nobody asked for, and something in my chest settles, not the old tight vigilance carried since 17, but something looser, something that feels, for the first time in longer than can be counted, almost like being safe enough to put the numbers down. The tea goes cold on the desk. It's never drunk that night. Sleep comes in the chair with the ledger still open, and dawn arrives with a blanket draped over my shoulders that wasn't there before. No one asks who. The answer is already known. 3 nights later, the house changes shape before anyone explains why. It starts with Corvin, Dominic's second, a lean man with a scar through one eyebrow who has never once looked over the way Grennan does. He moves through the halls at 9 that evening with a rifle slung low across his chest, and the sight of it stops everything cold in the corridor outside my room. Where's Dominic? Emergency meeting. South District. Corvin doesn't slow down. Stay upstairs, Emma. Staying upstairs doesn't happen. The window pulls me instead, the one that overlooks the front drive, and 3 black cars pull out through the gate into a night that has gone the particular silent gray of a sky about to open up. The gates lock behind them with a sound felt in the teeth. This feeling has been catalogued before, years ago, in a hospital hallway, waiting for a doctor to come back through swinging doors with a face that would tell everything before a word got said. My hands find the hem of my sleeve and start folding it, unfolding it, folding it again, small, useless motion, the only thing this body knows how to do with dread that has nowhere else to go. Midnight comes and goes. The house holds its breath along with me. Somewhere below, staff move through the halls too quietly, the specific hush of people trained not to ask questions they already suspect the answers to. At 2:14, the elevator from the underground garage engages. The hallway fills before a decision to move even registers. The doors open and Dominic comes out wrong, not walking, dragging, one arm locked hard across his ribs, his shirt on the color of something not yet nameable. Corvin has him under one shoulder, and behind them 2 more men carry a third, who isn't moving at all. "Get Dr. Whitlow," someone shouts, and someone else answers that Whitlow's an hour out, stuck behind the same storm that's been building over the district since dusk, and the 2 facts collide in the hallway like a door slamming somewhere far off. Counting my own breath stops. Counting his starts instead.
Shallow.
Too fast.
Wrong.
Emma, go to your room. Corvin's voice cracks with something he'd never admit to. The room doesn't get gone to. Dominic's does, ahead of them, and the bottom drawer of the bathroom cabinet opens on instinct because the trauma kit's location was already known, catalogued months ago. Told to myself it was curiosity and not preparation. It was preparation. That's been known for a while and never said out loud. They lay him on the bed. The room fills with too many people doing too little, hands hovering, nobody wanting to be the one to press down on a wound this deep, this dark, spreading through white cotton like ink through water. Everyone out. Nobody moves. Out. The word comes from somewhere unfamiliar in myself, low and certain, and this time they listen because second in command sits at that table now, because 3 months ago a man decided that was worth more than 20 years of loyalty, and tonight that decision is the only thing standing between Dominic and a room full of people who love him and don't know what to do with their hands. The shirt gets cut away. The wound is long, ragged, deeper on one side than the other. Not a clean line, something torn more than cut, and beneath the smell of blood waits another smell, recognizable from books read alone at 1 a.m. for months, told to myself it was only curiosity. Torn muscle has its own scent. That was never a thing I wanted to know. It's known now. Talk to me, Dominic says, or tries to. The words come out thin, threadbare, nothing like the voice that fills conference rooms without raising itself. I'm here. Gauze presses hard against the worst of it, both hands, full weight behind them.
Don't talk.
Breathe. Emma. Breathe, Dominic. His hand finds my wrist. Not gripping, not yet, just resting there, like confirmation is needed that this is real before anything else his body is telling him gets trusted. The bleeding doesn't slow the way the books promised it would. My hands start to shake, the particular shake that comes not from fear but from holding something too still for too long, and hating my hands for it doesn't stop it, hating that the one thing needing to stay steady tonight is the one thing threatening to fail. The pressure doesn't stop. Talking fills the space instead, because silence in this room feels like it might let something worse in. The twins get mentioned, a book read 3 times last week, because they wanted the ending changed each time. Nothing that matters, filling the space between us with sound because sound is the only thing left to offer that isn't blood. Somewhere in the telling, the bleeding slows. Not stops. Slows. Enough to dare easing the pressure, just slightly, watching the gauze hold instead of soak through in seconds. The wound gets packed the way the books described, hands moving faster than thought can follow, muscle memory built in months of study nobody knew was happening, for a reason never let out into the open until tonight. By the time Dr. Whitlow's headlights finally cut through the storm outside, Dominic's breathing has settled into something ragged but steady, and my hands, finally, have stopped shaking. Sitting back on my heels, the adrenaline leaves all at once, the way a held breath leaves when it's finally let go, and the whole body goes loose and heavy in its wake. Dominic's eyes are open, barely, fixed with an attention that has nothing left of the boardroom in it. Just a man, stripped down to something plain and frightened and grateful. His hand moves again. This time it isn't resting. His fingers close around mine, not the reflex grip of a man half-conscious, but a deliberate one, searching, holding on the way you hold on to the one thing in a burning building worth going back and for. You didn't leave, he says. Barely a whisper. Not a question.
No.
I didn't. Pulling away doesn't happen. Letting him hold on happens instead, letting my hand anchor him to a night that nearly took him from it, and somewhere under the exhaustion and the blood still drying on my wrists, something in my chest settles into a shape that doesn't have a name yet. A whole life has been spent being the one who needed saving in other people's eyes. Tonight was different. Tonight was the one who didn't flinch. His hand doesn't let go for 3 days. Not literally, Dr. Whitlow needs both of mine more than once for changing dressings, for holding basins, for the dozen small tasks that come with keeping a man alive after a night that nearly didn't. But every return to the room brings his hand finding mine again within minutes, like footsteps have been listened for the whole time spent elsewhere. No request gets made to stop it. Proximity is what this gets called, just proximity, just the reflex of a body that remembers who held the wound closed. That isn't the whole truth. The rest of it doesn't get examined yet. By the 4th day, he's sitting up. By the 6th, an argument with Corvin over reports he shouldn't be reading yet fills the hallway, and clarity arrives then that whatever this was, it's passing, the way storms pass, leaving the ground changed but dry again. He's alone that evening, found in the chair by the window, not the bed. Watching snow fall the way he was watching it the night the ledger changed hands, except now a blanket sits over his knees that he didn't ask for and hasn't complained about, which says more than any words would. You should be resting. I am resting. This is what resting looks like for me. His eyes don't leave the window. Sit down, Emma. The chair gets taken. The silence that follows isn't the kind learned to fill with numbers or reports. It just sits between us, unhurried, the way silence gets to be once two people have run out of reasons to perform for each other. I built this house on people who tell me what I want to hear. He says it plainly, no weight behind it, the way you state something already made peace with. 20 years of men agreeing with me before I finish a sentence. I stopped noticing it. That's the part that frightens me now, looking back. I stopped noticing. Grennan agrees with you. Grennan schemes from my supply lines and smiles at me in meetings. A ghost of something crosses his face, not quite a smile. You told me I was wrong about the discrepancy timeline the first week you worked here. Cost me nothing to fix it. Cost you nothing to say it. And I don't think I understood, until that night on the bed with my own blood on your hands, how rare that actually is. Someone with nothing to gain, telling me the truth anyway. My hands find each other, eyes dropping to them. 3 days later, the exact weight of the gauze can still be felt, the specific give of the wound under pressure, the sound his breath made when it finally caught rhythm again. I wasn't trying to be brave, comes out. I was trying to keep you alive. Those aren't the same thing. They're not. His eyes find mine now, fully, and something in that attention lands different than it ever has before. Not assessment, not the flat calculation of a man reading a ledger. Something closer to a question finally decided worth asking out loud. You never lied to me about your limits, Emma. Not once. Not even when it would have been easier. Lying about my limits has never gone well for me. The words come out quieter than intended. People decide what you can't do the moment they think you've admitted to one thing you can't. That lesson came young. Never hand anyone that kind of evidence. I'm not people.
No.
Something in my chest gives, finally, the way a held breath gives when the body simply cannot hold it any longer. You're not. His hand doesn't reach for mine this time. It doesn't need to. The room already holds something steadier than that. Something that doesn't require touch to prove it's real. I spent 15 years believing isolation was the price of surviving what I am, he says. That letting anyone close was a door left open for someone to walk through and take everything. I was so busy guarding that door, I never noticed I'd locked myself inside with it. And now I have a second in command who caught a bleed with her bare hands because she'd spent months teaching herself how, and never told a single person why. His head shakes slightly, something almost wondering in it. I don't know how to thank someone for that. I don't think I've ever had to. Every room ever walked into gets remembered then, every one that had to be proven worthy of before anyone would allow a seat. My mother comes to mind, and the 4 years of $20 payments and 2 children asleep 4 miles away who will grow up never knowing what it costs to keep them fed. Every person who looked at my file before they looked at my face gets remembered too. Every door that closed before the knocking even finished. You already did, comes out. You did it the night you carried me to bed instead of calling the staff. You did it every time you asked what I thought instead of what I could do for you. You didn't fix my life, Dominic. You just believed it was worth fixing. That's not something I've had a lot of practice being handed. Outside, the snow keeps falling, steady, patient, the same unbothered rhythm kept since the night this study first saw a collapse on its floor. Somewhere in this city, others like me exist, people who spent their whole lives being understood before anyone bothered to look closer, still waiting for someone to walk into a room and see past the file before the face. It doesn't get talked about much among the ones who found their way through, but recognition passes between us. On the rare nights our paths cross, in the particular quiet of people who know exactly what it costs to be believed in. His hand gets reached for this time. Not out of reflex. Not out of fear or crisis, or a body running faster than the mind behind it. Just because wanting to came first. You gave me hope, comes out. when everyone else had already decided I was hopeless. My voice doesn't shake saying it, though shaking was expected. This is me saying thank you for believing in me when nobody else thought there was anything here worth the trouble. No words answer. None are needed. His hand holds on instead, the way mine once held on to his in the dark, both of us finally, quietly, learning what it means to stop bracing for the door to close. There are others like her in this city, people the world decided it already understood before it bothered to look closer. Some of them are still waiting for someone to see them the way Dominic saw her. We don't talk about it often, but we recognize each other.